The night my sister called the police on me, I was standing in the kitchen I had helped her pay for, holding a casserole dish I had cooked with my own hands after a 10-hour work shift. I was not screaming. I was not threatening anyone. I was simply standing there, tired and confused, trying to understand how 7 years of giving everything I had to one person could end with her pointing at me like I was a stranger who had broken in. The officer who responded looked at me, then looked at her, and I could see in his face that he was trying to figure out what exactly had happened here. So was I had given my sister money when she had none. I had watched her children when she disappeared. I had lied to protect her reputation more times than I could count. And now she was asking someone with a badge to make me leave. The worst part was not the humiliation of that moment. The worst part was that somewhere deep inside, I was not even surprised, backslash. Before I tell you everything that led to that night, I want to ask you something real. If you had spent years being the one person someone could always call, the one who showed up every single time without being asked, the one who rearranged her own life over and over so that someone else's life could hold together, how long would it take you to finally stop? Think about that as you listen. Because Nadia's answer to that question took longer than it should have, and understanding why is the whole story. Nadia was 31 years old when the police came to her sister's door, and she had spent most of those 31 years believing that family was something you protected at any cost. That belief had been built carefully over time, the way beliefs always are, not through one big dramatic moment but through 1,000 small ones. It was built in the way her mother used to say that sisters were forever. It was built in the Sunday dinners where the whole family talked about loyalty like it was a religion. It was built in the way Nadia had watched her parents sacrifice for each other and had decided early that she would be that kind of person too. The kind who stayed, the kind who showed up, the kind who did not turn away when things got hard. Her sister's name was Cora, and Cora was 3 years younger than Nadia, which meant that Nadia had spent most of her conscious memory being the older one, the responsible one, the one who set the example. When they were children, Nadia was the one who made sure Cora's homework was done when their mother worked double shifts. When they were teenagers, Nadia was the one who covered for Cora when Cora snuck out and then lied about it. When they became adults, the pattern had already been set so deeply that neither of them questioned it. Nadia helped, Cora received, Nadia asked for nothing, Cora expected everything. Nadia had a good job. She worked as a project coordinator for a mid-sized logistics company in the city, and she had built that career through careful, consistent effort over 6 years. She was not rich, but she was stable. She had a small one-bedroom apartment that she kept clean and organized. She had savings. She had health insurance. She had a life that ran quietly and smoothly because she had worked hard to make it that way. She did not talk about her financial stability much around her family, because she had learned early that talking about stability in a family where others struggled was not something you did without consequence. Cora had made different choices. This is important to say, not as a judgment but as a fact, because the difference in their choices became the foundation of every problem that followed. Cora had married young, at 22, to a man named Derek who was charming in the way that people sometimes are when they have not yet been tested. Derek did not stay charming under pressure. He left when their younger daughter was 4 months old, and Cora was left with two small children, a lease she could barely afford, and a support system that had slowly trained itself to solve every problem she walked into. Nadia stepped in immediately. That is what Nadia did. She did not stop to wonder whether stepping in was wise. She did not ask herself whether helping this time would change anything or simply create new space for the same problem to refill. She called Cora, listened to Cora cry for 3 hours, drove to Cora's apartment the next morning with groceries, and stayed for 2 weekends in a row to help with the babies while Cora tried to find her footing. Nadia did not resent any of it in that moment. She loved her sister. She wanted to help. The problem was not the helping. The problem was what the helping slowly became. Over the following months, Nadia's visits became expected rather than grateful. Cora stopped thanking her for the groceries because the groceries just appeared now, and things that appear reliably stop feeling like gifts. Nadia started covering parts of Cora's rent when Cora's hours, her waitressing job got cut, and she did it quietly because Cora had asked her not to tell their mother. Nadia was paying for two households on one income, and she was doing it in secret. She told herself this was temporary. She told herself this was just getting Cora through a hard stretch. She told herself that Cora would get back on her feet and things would balance out. Cora did not get back on her feet, or rather, Cora got back on her feet just enough to make new mistakes, and then looked to Nadia to absorb the consequences of those mistakes. There was the boyfriend after Derek who borrowed money from Cora and disappeared. Nadia covered what Cora had lent him so Cora's rent check would not bounce. There was the car accident where Cora's insurance had lapsed because she had forgotten to pay it, and Nadia helped cover the fine and the repair costs because Cora needed the car to get to work. There was the credit card debt that appeared after Cora tried to start a small candle-making business that did not work out. Nadia did not pay that one directly, but she spent 4 weekends helping Cora figure out payment plans and write letters to creditors. 4 weekends she could have spent resting, building her own savings, or doing anything else with her own life. What Nadia noticed, slowly and then all at once, was that her help was never acknowledged in the presence of other people. When the family gathered for birthdays or holidays, Cora would talk about how she was managing things on her own. She would say things like, I have been figuring it all out by myself, or I just keep pushing through no matter what, and the family would praise her strength and her resilience. And Nadia would sit there quietly with this strange hollow feeling, not quite anger, not quite sadness, but something like the feeling of being invisible inside a room full of people who claim to love you. She tried to bring it up once. She chose a quiet Tuesday evening when Cora called to talk about nothing in particular, and she worked up the nerve to say something gentle. She said something like, Hey, I feel like sometimes the things I do to help don't really get acknowledged, and that matters to me. She had practiced how she would say it for 3 days. She had tried to make it calm and fair and not accusatory. Cora went quiet for a moment and then said that Nadia always made things about herself and that she was going through so much and that she could not believe Nadia was making her feel guilty for simply surviving. By the end of the call, Nadia was apologizing. She did not know how that happened, but she apologized and they moved on and nothing changed. That was year 3 of this arrangement. There were 4 more years to go before the night with the police. In year 4, Cora's situation shifted. She got a better job, a front desk position at a dental office that paid more steadily and had benefits. Nadia felt genuinely happy about this. She thought this would be the turning point, the moment when the weight she had been carrying for years would finally start to lift. Instead, what happened was that Cora's improved income funded an improved lifestyle, and the help Nadia had been providing did not decrease, it just transformed. Instead of covering rent, Nadia was now expected to cover childcare gaps. Instead of buying groceries, she was expected to take the girls for the whole weekend so Cora could go on trips with new friends that Nadia was not invited to. The financial help shifted into time and time and labor, it turned out, were things Nadia had been giving so freely for so long that no one thought to ask whether she had enough of them left for herself. Nadia's own life had been quietly contracting around the edges in ways she had not fully noticed until she began to. She had stopped going to her book club because the monthly meetings always seemed to fall on weekends when Cora needed something. She had let her friendship with her colleague Priya fade because every time they made plans, Nadia ended up canceling them. She had been seeing a man she liked for about 4 months before she realized she had introduced him to her sister before she had introduced him to anyone else, because Cora had demanded to meet him, and Nadia had gone along with it, and the man had found the whole dynamic confusing and eventually faded away. Nadia's life was being lived in the gaps between Cora's needs, and the gaps were getting smaller every year. In year 5, something happened that Nadia did not talk about for a long time. Their mother had a minor health scare. It turned out to be nothing serious, but for 2 weeks while they waited for test results, Nadia drove their mother to appointments, handled calls from the doctor's office, organized paperwork, and coordinated with their mother's workplace about her schedule. She did all of this on top of her regular job and on top of her standing responsibilities to Cora. Cora visited our mother twice during those 2 weeks, and both times she arrived with flowers and a warm smile, and the family cooed over her thoughtfulness. Nadia had been there 13 times, no one counted, no one noted it. When their mother's results came back clean, the family celebrated, and Cora made a Facebook post about how much she loved their mom and how family was everything. The post got 47 comments. Nadia did not comment, she was too tired. It was during that period that Nadia started keeping notes. She did not plan to use them for anything. She did not sit down and decide to build a case. She simply started writing down what she did and what it cost her because she needed to feel like her effort existed somewhere outside of her own exhausted memory. She kept the notes in a small app on her phone, nothing dramatic, just dates and brief descriptions. Covered electricity shortfall, $240. Watched girls from Friday evening to Sunday night. Drove mom to hematology appointment. Called insurance company for Cora. Found the phone number for a family lawyer when Cora thought Derek might try to revisit custody arrangements. The notes grew steadily. She never showed them to anyone, but she had them. Year 6 was when things started to shift in a direction Nadia had not expected. Their aunt on their father's side, a woman named Rosemary who had always been quietly present at the edges of the family, passed away after a short illness. Nadia had been close to Rosemary in a way that the rest of the family had not noticed, because the rest of the family had not been paying close attention to Nadia's connections to anyone outside of what Nadia could provide for them. Rosemary had been the one person who, at family gatherings, would find Nadia in the kitchen or in the corner and ask her directly, not how everyone else was doing, but how Nadia was doing. Specifically, genuinely, Rosemary had seen something in Nadia that Nadia had been too busy to see in herself. Rosemary left Nadia something in her will. It was not a fortune, but it was significant. It was the small house Rosemary had owned in a quieter part of town, a modest 2-bedroom with a yard fully paid off, worth roughly $280,000 in the current market. She also left Nadia a letter. Nadia read the letter alone in her car outside the lawyer's office, and she cried for 20 minutes. Not from grief, though she was grieving, but because the letter said things that she had not heard said to her in a very long time. Rosemary wrote that she had watched Nadia for years and admired her deeply. She wrote that Nadia was one of the most capable and quietly strong people she had ever known. She wrote that she hoped the house would give Nadia a foundation that was hers alone, because in Rosemary's estimation, Nadia had spent too long building other people's foundations and not enough time standing on her own. Nadia did not tell Cora about the house right away. She told herself she was just waiting for the right moment. The truth was something she could not quite name yet. A feeling that whatever she had, if she named it in front of Cora, would immediately become something Cora needed a piece of. The right moment never came because Cora found out on her own. One of their cousins who had been at the will reading mentioned it in passing at a family dinner, and suddenly it was in the open, and Cora's face in that moment was something Nadia would not forget. It was not a happy face. It was not even a surprised face. It was a face doing calculations. The next morning, Cora called. She started warmly, said she had heard the news, said she was so happy for Nadia, said she missed Aunt Rosemary so much. Then, about 4 minutes into the conversation, she said that she had been thinking and that it might make sense for her and the girls to move into Rosemary's house. She called it Rosemary's house, not Nadia's house, even though the deed had been transferred. She said the house had more space, that the girls needed a yard, that the neighborhood was safer than where she was currently renting. She said it like it was a logical arrangement that Nadia would of course want to be a part of. She did not ask, she presented. Nadia felt something go still inside her. She did not say yes. She also did not say no directly, not in that moment, because she was still the version of herself who avoided conflict and kept the peace. She said she needed to think about it. Cora said, of course, take your time, and the warmth in her voice was the warmth of someone who already considers the matter settled. Nadia spent the next week inside a kind of internal storm that she kept completely hidden from everyone around her. She went to work, she smiled, she answered emails, she ate lunch, she drove home. But inside, something that had been building for 6 years was finally reaching a pressure point. She started reading the notes on her phone, all of from the beginning. She read every entry she had made for years, every amount, every weekend, every late night, everything she had sacrificed quietly and alone. And she felt something change inside her. Not anger exactly, though anger was part of it. It was more like clarity. The kind of clarity that comes when you have been standing in fog for years and the wind finally shifts. She called her friend Priya, the friend she had been neglecting for years, and she told her everything. Not a tidy version, everything: the rent, the childcare, the car, the weekends, the Facebook posts, the letter from Rosemary, the phone call about the house. Priya listened for a long time without speaking. When she finally spoke, she said something simple. She said, Nadia, you have been paying for someone's life and she has been living it like she built it herself. Nadia knew this, but hearing it said back to her by someone who had no reason to soften it was different. It was like pressing on a bruise you had been pretending was not there. Nadia made a decision. She did not make it dramatically. She did not call Cora and deliver a speech. She simply made a private decision about her own life. She would not be giving Cora the house. She would move into it herself. It was hers. Rosemary had given it to her because Rosemary had believed she deserved a foundation of her own, and she was going to honor that. She also made a second decision. She was going to stop covering Cora's shortfalls, not out of cruelty, not to punish anyone, but because she had finally understood something that should have been obvious years earlier. Covering Cora's shortfalls had not helped Cora. It had helped Cora avoid the discomfort that might have led to actual change. Every time Nadia absorbed the consequence of Cora's decisions, she removed the feedback loop that might have taught Cora to make different ones. Nadia had not been helping her sister grow. She had been helping her sister stay still. She did not announce either decision. She simply began preparing. She arranged for the transfer of utilities at Rosemary's house into her name. She contacted a moving company. She gave proper notice at her apartment. She was calm and organized and methodical because those were the things she knew how to be. When Cora called a week later to ask if Nadia had thought more about the house arrangement, Nadia said clearly and without extra words that she would be moving into the house herself and that it would remain her own home. There was a pause on Cora's end of the line that lasted long enough to be uncomfortable. Then Cora said she was confused because she thought Nadia understood how much the girls needed stability. Nadia said she understood that completely and that the girls deserved stability and that she hoped Cora would continue building that for them in their current home or a new rental. Cora said that Nadia was being selfish. Nadia said she was going to let that go for now. Cora hung up. The next 3 days were quiet, then the family started calling. Their mother called first. She did not ask questions. She said that Cora was very upset and that Nadia needed to think about the girls. Nadia said she loved the girls and that her home was her own. Their mother said she thought they had raised Nadia better than this. Nadia said goodbye gently and ended the call. Two cousins called within the same afternoon. One of them said that Nadia had always been a little cold. The other said that the house was basically just sitting there and that Nadia lived alone and did not really need the space. Nadia did not argue with either of them. She said she appreciated their concern and ended both calls. Then Cora texted. The text was long. It covered everything: the years Cora had struggled, the sacrifices Cora had made for her children, the idea that family was supposed to mean something, and the suggestion that what Nadia was doing was a betrayal of everything they had been raised to believe. Nadia read the message twice. Then she opened her notes app. She looked at the entries: $240 for electricity, Friday to Sunday, both weekends in March. Hematology appointment. 13 visits in 2 weeks. She thought for a moment. Then she typed a short reply. She said she understood Cora was hurting and that she cared about her. She said she had given a great deal over the years and that she was now making a decision about her own life. She said she hoped Cora would find the support she needed and that she would always love her nieces. Then she put her phone down. Cora called the next morning and the call was not like the others. Her voice was a different temperature this time, something harder underneath the surface. She said that she knew things about Nadia, things that Nadia might not want the family to know. Nadia asked what that meant. Cora said she knew how much Nadia had been struggling privately, that she knew Nadia had been in therapy, that s. He knew some personal things that Nadia had shared in confidence. Nadia felt her stomach tighten. Then Cora said that she needed Nadia to reconsider because otherwise things were going to get complicated. That was the word she used, complicated. And Nadia recognized in that moment that what her sister was doing was not a request and not a plea, it was a threat. Nadia did not respond with anger. She felt something go very quiet inside her, a kind of stillness that sometimes comes when the final illusion drops. She said she would think about it, then she ended the call, then she sat in her car for a long time, not crying, not panicking, just thinking. She thought about the notes on her phone, she thought about the money, she thought about the years, she thought about the threat wrapped inside the word complicated, and she thought about Rosemary's letter. She hoped the house would give Nadia a foundation that was hers alone. She started thinking carefully about what she needed to do next. The first thing she did was call Priya. She told her about the threat. Priya did not minimize it. She said Nadia needed to document everything from this point forward and that she should speak to a lawyer, not because things had to become legal, but because knowing her position clearly would give her strength. Nadia agreed. She had a consultation with a family lawyer 2 days later. The lawyer was a calm woman named Anita who listened without rushing and then told Nadia several useful things. The deed transfer was clean and recorded. The house was fully and legally Nadia's. No family member had any claim to it. If anyone attempted to use personal information to pressure her into a financial decision, that could be considered coercion, which was its own kind of problem. Nadia left that meeting feeling something she had not felt in a long time. She felt protected, not by anyone else, by her own choices. She moved into Rosemary's house on a Saturday in October. She hired movers and brought her things over in the morning. She cleaned every room herself that afternoon. She made the bed with new sheets. She cooked a simple dinner and ate it alone at the kitchen table with the back door open because the evening was cool and the yard smelled like cut grass and late flowers. She thought about Rosemary. She thought about all the years. She thought about the version of herself who had apologized on that Tuesday phone call when she had done nothing wrong. And then she did not think about any of it for the rest of the evening. She just sat there in her own home in the quiet. Cora did not contact her for 11 days. Then she did, and the contact was not what Nadia expected. It was not another threat. It was not a family mobilized attack. Cora showed up at the house. She knocked on the door on a Sunday afternoon without calling ahead, and Nadia opened it, and there was her sister standing on the porch with her younger daughter on her hip and the older one hiding behind her leg. Cora looked tired, not performed tired. Actually tired, the kind that sits in the eyes. Nadia did not slam the door, she is not that person. She stepped back and let them in. They sat in the living room, the girls touching things curiously the way children do, and Cora said she needed to talk. She said she was sorry for the threat. She said she did not mean it. She said she had been panicking and she had said something ugly because she was scared. Nadia looked at her sister for a long moment. She believed that Cora was sorry for the specific words she had used. She was not sure Cora understood the larger pattern that had produced those words, but she accepted the apology for what it was. Then Cora said that she still needed help, that her current rental was going up in rent at the end of the year, that she was struggling, that the girls needed stability. Nadia took a breath. She had thought carefully about this moment, had talked it through with Priya and with the therapist she had been seeing. She spoke clearly and without cruelty. She said that she loved Cora and the girls. She said she could not be Cora's financial cushion anymore. She said this not because she did not care, but because it had not been working for either of them. She said she was willing to help Cora research housing assistance programs, willing to help her think through a budget, willing to be a sister, but she was not going to keep being a resource that Cora could draw on without limit. She said this was not about the house. The house was hers and that was settled. This was about the pattern, and the pattern needed to change. Cora cried. Nadia did not cry. She was steady and present and not unkind, but she did not fold. When Cora left that afternoon, nothing was resolved in the sense of everything being fixed, but something had shifted, something real and fundamental had moved. Nadia had said a true thing and it had stayed said. In the weeks that followed, the family dynamics rearranged themselves. Elves in uncomfortable ways. Some family members who had called to pressure her went quieter. Their mother, after a few weeks of strained calls, came over for coffee one afternoon and said something unexpected. She said that she had talked to Cora, really talked to her, and that she thought she understood more than she had before. She said she had not always seen how much Nadia had been carrying. She said she was sorry for the phone call where she had said they had raised her better than this. She said she thought they had actually raised her exactly right, and she had just been looking in the wrong direction. Nadia sat with her mother in the kitchen and they drank their coffee and talked, really talked, in a way they had not done in years. Her mother was not perfect in that conversation. She still made a few comments that missed the mark. But she showed up and she tried and Nadia received it. It was not a fairy tale reconciliation. It was a real one, imperfect and uncomfortable and genuine. Cora found a different apartment a month later. It was smaller than what she had been in but more affordable, and she qualified for a rental assistance program that Nadia had helped her research. Nadia did not pay the deposit. Cora handled it herself. When the girls moved into the new place, Nadia went over to help unpack. She brought dinner. She played with her nieces on the floor of the half-empty living room. She was an aunt that day, just an aunt, not a financial institution or an emergency service. It felt different, it felt right. But the night with the police had not happened yet. That came before all of this, and the story goes back now to explain exactly how it did. About 2 weeks before Nadia moved out of her apartment, she went to Cora's to cook a family dinner. This was not unusual. She had done it dozens of times over the years, brought ingredients, cooked for Cora and the girls, cleaned up, gone home. She had done it when she was exhausted and when she did not feel like it and when she was drowning under her own responsibilities. This particular evening, she came after a very long day, and she brought a casserole she had put together in the morning before work and kept in her car in a cooler during the day, which, looking back, was the kind of thing that tells you everything about a person's habits. She had also come to collect something. She had lent Cora her spare set of keys to her apartment months earlier when Cora had needed somewhere to go during a difficult situation and she had not gotten them back. She needed them back now because she was planning to hand them to her landlord as part of the move-out process. She had texted Cora about this earlier in the week and Cora had said of course no problem. So Nadia came over, set the casserole in the kitchen, and asked for the keys. Cora said she did not know where they were, that she had misplaced them, that she would look. Then she went into the back room and did not come out for a long time. Nadia waited in the kitchen. She set the table. She got the casserole ready. She waited more. When Cora finally came out, she was on her phone and she walked past Nadia without making eye contact and went into the living room. The girls were watching something in their bedroom. The apartment was quiet in a way that felt off. Nadia followed her into the living room and asked again about the keys. Cora told her without looking up from her phone that she would find them later. Nadia said she needed them tonight. Cora said that was not how it worked. Nadia felt the day's exhaustion pressing against the inside of her skull and she stood her ground in the way that someone who has been too agreeable for too long sometimes does when something very small finally becomes the thing that matters. She said, Cora, I need my keys. I need to give them to the landlord. This is my property. Cora put her phone down and looked at her with an expression Nadia had not seen before, cold and measuring. And then Cora picked her phone back up and called the police. She said there was someone in her home who was refusing to leave and who was harassing her. Nadia stood there holding the casserole dish she had just retrieved from the kitchen. She was not touching Cora. She was not yelling. She was standing in the living room of her sister's apartment holding a dish of food she had made for this same sister after a 10-hour workday, and she was being reported to the police. When the officers arrived, Nadia was asked to step outside. She did. She explained the situation quietly. She explained who she was, that she had a lease for her own apartment, that she had come to retrieve her own keys, that she was not threatening anyone. The officer inside spoke to Cora. The officer outside spoke to Nadia. Then they conferred. One of them came back and said that since this was Cora's residence and Cora was asking her to leave, the best course of action for tonight was for Nadia to go. He said this was not an arrest. He said this was just about the situation. He said it in a tone that suggested he could see the situation was more complicated than what he had been called about. Nadia went to her car. She drove home. She sat in her parking lot for a while, then she took out her phone and opened her notes app. She made an entry. She wrote the date. She wrote a single line. She called the police on me because I asked for my own keys. She did not cry that night. She had run out of a certain kind of emotion. What she felt instead was something clean and hard and clear. It was the feeling of someone who finally knows exactly what something is. She never told the family what Cora had done that night. Not at first. She did not need to make it a story. She needed to make it a turning point. She saw her lawyer the following week and told her about the incident. She asked whether she needed to do anything legally. The lawyer said she did not think so, that it had been resolved on scene, but that it would be worth keeping a record, which Nadia already had. They also talked about the keys. The lawyer suggested that since Nadia was moving out, she could simply report the lost key set to the landlord and pay the minimal rekey fee rather than continuing to pursue the matter with Cora. Nadia paid the fee. It was $45. She noted it in her app. She moved out of her apartment, she moved into Rosemary's house, life shifted. There is one more piece to tell. About 4 months after Nadia moved in, she got a call from one of the cousins who had called to pressure her earlier, the one who had said the house was basically just sitting there. The cousin's name was Greta, and she was the kind of person who knew things before other people and liked that about herself. Greta said she was not calling to argue. She said she had actually been thinking about things and that she owed Nadia an apology. Nadia listened. Greta said she had learned more about the financial history between Nadia and Cora, not all of it, but enough. She said someone in the family had mentioned something and she had started asking questions, and she had been surprised by what she found out. She said she was sorry for the call she had made. She said she thought she had been seeing only one part of something much larger. Nadia thanked her, she did not say more than that. But after the call, she thought about what Greta had said. Someone in the family had mentioned something. She thought it might be her mother who had been quietly rethinking things. She did not know for certain. She did not need to know for certain. What mattered was that the truth had its own way of finding the surface. She had not needed to campaign for it. She had not needed to perform for it. She had simply continued living her own life clearly and honestly, and the truth had arrived on its own schedule. Cora and Nadia did not become best friends after everything that happened. Their relationship was reset to something more honest and therefore more manageable. Cora called sometimes, Nadia answered sometimes. When they saw each other at family events, they were civil and sometimes genuinely warm, the way people can be when they have stopped pretending. The pretending had cost both of them in different ways. Cora had pretended that Nadia's help was simply the natural order of things. Nadia had pretended that the pattern did not hurt her. Stopping the pretending hurt at first, and then it helped. Nadia's nieces still spent time with her. She made sure of that, not because she felt obligated, because she genuinely loved those girls and they were not responsible for the choices the adults in their lives had made. She took them to the park sometimes. She read to them. She made the kind of memories that have nothing to do with money and everything to do with presence. Nadia started a small vegetable garden in the yard behind Rosemary's house in the spring. She was not sure she knew how to garden, and she did not at first. She killed a few things, she asked questions, she tried again. By summer, she had tomatoes and lettuce and a row of herbs she used in cooking. She thought about Rosemary often while she worked in that garden. She thought about what Rosemary had seen in her. She thought about the letter. She hoped the house would give Nadia a foundation that was hers alone. It had. Nadia was 32 now, a year past the kitchen in Cora's apartment with the casserole dish and the police at the door. She was not perfect. She still struggled sometimes with the impulse to overhelp, to say yes before she had thought about whether yes was the right answer, to feel guilty when someone she loved was struggling and she was not rushing in to fix it. These things did not go away entirely. But she knew they were there now, she could see them. And seeing something clearly is the first step toward choosing differently. She was also happier in her quieter life than she had ever been in the busy, exhausted, invisible life she had been living for 7 years. Her apartment had been a place she came home to between helping everyone else. Her house was a place that belonged to her. She cooked meals she wanted to eat. She read books she had been meaning to read for years. She went to bed without dreading the next message or phone call. She called Priya every week or two and they talked like old friends who had never really lost each other because they had not, they had just been misplaced for a while. There is a specific kind of grief that comes when you realize you have been loyal to a version of a relationship that only ever existed on your side. The love was real, the effort was real, the sacrifice was real, but the reciprocity you were waiting for was not coming, and somewhere inside you knew it, and you kept going anyway because you believed that loyalty meant continuing regardless. Nadia had carried that grief quietly for a long time. She carried it still sometimes in small doses on ordinary days. She did not think the grief was wrong. She thought it was honest. She had loved her sister honestly, and the shape of that love had been distorted by a pattern that neither of them had examined until it broke. What Nadia wanted now was not to be proven right. She did not need Cora to fully account for every dollar or every weekend or every moment of invisibility. She did not need the family to issue a statement acknowledging her contributions. She did not need any of that. She needed to build a life she was proud of. She needed to stand on the foundation Rosemary had believed she deserved. She needed to be someone who helped from fullness instead of from fear, from choice instead of from habit. She was working on it every day in small and large ways. She was working on it. The last time Nadia cooked in Rosemary's kitchen, she made the same casserole she had brought to Cora's apartment on the night everything finally broke. She made it on a quiet Friday evening with the radio on and the back door open. She ate it at the kitchen table and she thought about how strange it was that the same dish could represent two completely different moments, one that was the end of something and one that was the beginning of something. She thought that was probably true of a lot of things. The same action, the same gesture, the same kind of love can mean something entirely different depending on whether you are giving it to someone who receives it carefully or pouring it into something that will never be full. She washed the dish, she put it away, she sat in her living room with a book and the lamp on, and the house settled quietly around her in the way that only your own home does. And she thought about all the women who had sat in exactly the kind of silence she was sitting in right now, the kind that comes after years of noise, and felt it the same way she did, not as absence, as arrival. Nadia had arrived. If Nadia's story touched something in you, I would love to know what moment hit the hardest. Was it the years of invisible effort, the police call, the moment she finally said no and stayed no? Or maybe it was the quiet part at the end, learning to live in a space that was truly hers? Drop your thoughts below because the people watching this have lived real versions of this story, and your words mean something to the people who need to hear them. And if you know someone who gives too much and never asks for anything, share this with them. Sometimes the right story reaches someone at exactly the right moment.